welcome to VSA Capital podcast, a tech and transitional energy podcast. A bit of a special, actually, a special with one of my favourite people to talk to because he knows more about batteries, in my view, than anybody else. It's Dan Blondal from Nano One out in, I'm guessing you're in Vancouver at the moment, Dan.
Yes, just back in Vancouver. But yeah, great to be here, Andrew.
Yeah, well, look, you're just back. Have you been down in Arkansas?
Yeah, I was at the Arkansas Lithium Innovation Summit, which is quite a unique conference, and because it's it's very regionally based. It's really driven by the Economic Development Forum there, rather than your typical trade show type company. So it's got a really kind of home baked feel. It's very genuine. It's very much about Arkansas and the development of the not only the lithium industry but the downstream and midstream, which is where we sit. So it was fantastic.
I mean, it's I have fun. I've been there. They eat a lot of food, but
it was. Yeah, it was in Little Rock, which is it was actually quite a nice little town, and it was 900 people, and it was as big as any lithium conference I've ever been to. A lot of local content, but a lot of strategics, of course, as well. Those who are interested in the lithium plays in Arkansas, and a huge government and university presence as well. I had the honor to have a dinner with a select few CEOs and the governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So that was quite a treat. Very engaged on bringing not only the lithium industry to Arkansas, but the midstream and creating an ecosystem that can consume Arkansas's lithium and keep it in the U.S., of course.
I mean, when I went there, that was for a very similar reason, and they're very keen to encourage business down there, aren't they, and to get grants and to really develop this whole industry down there. So I suspect it was pretty interesting. But now, let's just also, before we get stuck on Arkansas, as usual with you seem to find money almost, talking of little rocks, under big rocks, you turn them over and find this money. You've just got another $5 million grant, I think, from NRCan. I mean, I think your total is now up to something like $40 million of what would be defined as non-dilutive funding. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so NRCan, which is Natural Resources Canada, came in on really to complement what we did with the Department of Defense last year through the Pentagon with the Quebec government, and this is complementing other federal funding that we've received kind of over the years. But really, it's really about complementing the Quebec and Pentagon funding to expand the capacity that we have in Candiac. So this money it's a grant, but it repays money we spend. So as we spend money, we expense it and we get repaid. Right now, we're sitting, as you say, we're north of $40 million of money that we've raised. We've drawn down probably about 20 so far, or maybe a little less than that. And we continue to be, actively drawing down that money. So there's certainly very good leverage for our shareholders. Their money is being well spent and well reimbursed as well.
I mean, clearly this is all good, but I mean, again, I've just opened the front page of your website, and your news releases are Rio Tinto, Sumitomo. I know that you've got all these amazing partners. Is the way the world's going at the moment with these partners, are you finding that the US government as well is saying that you've got something vital, we want these partners, we want in? Is this the sort of strategy of getting all these partners together to basically be able to grow this business to something really quite phenomenal and compete against the Chinese?
Well, yeah. So definitely competing with the Chinese. There's no doubt about that. And look, you're as familiar as anybody with what China has done in the battery space, and particularly in the midstream where we exist. I mean, that is kind of where the major chokehold is. I mean, everything is processed through China right now, particularly in the precursor and cathode side of it. And that's really where all the control is. That is the midstream that we need to compete with. And it's rock bottom costs in China, and that makes it even harder to compete with and harder to kind of extract out of China and bring here. So we can't, I've said this before, we can't copy China and expect to compete. We have to innovate in process, and what we're doing is vertically integrating the precursor and the cathode part of the business to drive down the cost, and ultimately we found a way to break free of the Chinese kind of stranglehold on iron sulfate and iron phosphate, and that's really one of the biggest impediments to growth in North America, and that's why the U.S. government, the Canadian government, actually, and a bunch of other jurisdictions, including G7, see really the national security imperatives and the growth imperatives of what we're doing, and why it becomes such an important part of the dialogue, both north and south of the 49th parallel here in North America.
I mean, this is a little bit maybe off piece, but I know you watch geopolitics very carefully. I mean, I've met you in I've met you in Canada, I've met you in the UK, I've met you in China. But is it the G7 now, or is it the G2?
uh, well, look, I think it's the G7 when we're talking about building diversified economies here into Europe and other areas. So from a Canadian point of view, G7 is extremely important as we diversify economies in that direction. But of course, North and South, Canada, the US is really important. Ultimately, yeah, I mean, it's China and the US here fighting for dominance in this space. And China has a 15, arguably a 15-year head start. We're going to have to invest in innovation, and we're going to have to invest in ideas really to drive change and build supply chains that are sustainable and long lasting. And to your question earlier, what's super important here is the partnerships, the ecosystem. China built an ecosystem that thrived on itself, and that's how they built the expertise and got, that's how they got bigger and better and wider and faster and higher quality. In North America, that ecosystem isn't together, so we have to bring those partners, and that's whether that's Sumitomo Metal Mining, who we've advanced that partnership considerably. They're part of this NRCan grant, so it's showing further engagement from these very large partners. Rio Tinto is being very active on the lithium front with us, and we continue to engage on that. And so that's really about bringing an ecosystem together here that can kind of feed on itself and bring the volumes of production up that will ultimately make it competitive and have the economies of scale that are really needed to make a thriving supply chain in North America and Europe and other areas, of course, as well.
But just picking up on that point, so I mean, you do have. I mean, we've just mentioned two there, but you've got a lot of other partners that you work with. You have an amazing ecosystem. You have done incredibly well with all the grant funding to keep you going. You have proprietary technology for the one pot system, LFP. When do we see this, though, go into what I describe as the mainstream? Because you've set it all up, and we're sort of waiting. I feel, and this is probably the wrong word, but for that big bang moment, if you see what I mean, when suddenly, yep, here we go, and we're producing, and people are taking this and that, and this guy's licensing it. How does that all unfold from where you are now? You've done all. You're like a baker. You've got all the ingredients on your table. You've mixed them all beautifully, but you've still got to put it in the oven and bake the cake, haven't you?
Yeah, but the challenge, Andrew, is baking the cake for who? And so we're in a nascent industry here. There's a whole bunch of cell production that's announced in LFP cell production that's announced in North America. there are small players who are making cells today, and they're largely in the defense industry. So our focus is on getting those first sales with defense contractors, and these are defense contractors both in Europe and in North America, because their volumes are small. We can actually service it out of the facility we have in Quebec that the Enercan and Pentagon money is going towards. Ultimately, that'll bring confidence in the product and the process and the design of the plant, and will bring about the larger offtakes that are going to be needed for these much larger plants that are still being built in North America. So you can't build it and they will come, because ultimately that's sort of bad use of the economics. We have to build organically here from those that can buy product today, and ultimately be prepared to pull the trigger on much larger facilities and much larger production when all these other battery factories come online. And so that's an important part of the strategy that we have. Obviously, having the backing of the Pentagon plays a fundamental role in bringing about defense contracts, and we're well on our way on that front. And as I say, we can serve that directly out of the plant we have in Quebec. But that plant isn't nearly big enough to serve the larger industry. So we build the confidence, we build the offtakes there. That largely then drives the economics and the financial decisions to build up larger factories, elsewhere. Be that in the U.S., Canada, Europe, the Indo-Pacific region. There's many different areas where we can see this technology being deployed. And because we have a kind of a modular concept, design once, build many concept, we believe we can mobilize very quickly, and we can build factories very quickly wherever they may be needed as this kind of nascent industry becomes mainstream.
And are you seeing that interest coming in with people going, you know what, we need to build, be it through a license and royalty scheme or however you decide to do it, one of your, I think you call it a one-pot reactor or whatever. Are you seeing people starting to talk to you saying, we want to build one here?
Yes, obviously that's why I was in Arkansas. The government in Arkansas really wants to see us there, as do many other jurisdictions. So we're seeing that kind of pull, and we see Arkansas as a very favorable jurisdiction in the U.S., and that's why we're focusing there. We're seeing the same kind of pull from the Quebec government. We're seeing the same kind of pull in the kind of Asia Pacific region as well. So yeah, no, it's really happening. But as I said, it's very much dependent on when these cell production lines come online and how quickly they can decouple from the LFP in China. So we have to time that properly and make sure that we're building these factories to come online when that demand will be firmly in place. So there's definitely a timing issue here.
And obviously, look, I jumped straight into this and assumed that everybody knows what you do, sort of thing, because we've talked a lot of times. But are you finding that people are interested because there's this big move from NMC to LFP, or are you finding they like it because you've got this great technology with the one-pot reactor, or are you just finding that actually people are saying, we don't want to be reliant on China, we need our own systems, and actually you've got it? Or is it a combination of all three?
It's definitely all three. But look, ultimately, I think there's a lot of interest in the LFP story. There's a lot of interest in kind of decoupling from China. But at the end of the day, it comes down to technology and innovation. Because, as I said earlier, we can't compete by copying China. And there's a couple really big reasons why. One is China controls all of the world's iron sulfate as a feedstock for LFP. And it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. I've said this to your listeners before, but it's a tailings from titanium mining and refining, and it only exists in China. And they probably have 100x more of it than anybody else in the world. and it's free. It's free. It's virtually impossible to replicate. No one can make iron sulfate and be competitive anywhere else in the world. So that's one of the reasons they have such a strong stranglehold on. And the second is that processing that iron sulfate generates a lot of wastewater. And it's both of those elements, the wastewater and the access to this iron sulfate, that create these huge impediments to growth in the West. You have to solve those, and that is only done through process innovation. So the one pot process not only vertically integrates in this space, but it also enables us to go from iron oxide and iron metal powders. That gets rid of the sulfate and at the same time eliminates the wastewater. By doing that, you can make a modular plant. You can actually site it anywhere you want. We don't need to be coupled into an industrial center. We can have a distributed network of plants. We can have them all in one place. We can have them close to lithium. We can have them sitting on their own on an island. It doesn't really matter because we don't have any externalities. We don't have to do custom engineering, custom permitting. All of that makes it imminently more scalable and deployable and faster to move. And that is fundamentally what people are interested in, because it solves the other two problems. It basically addresses the LFP demand, it addresses the need for scale up, and it decouples from China. But it comes down to innovation and technology, because that's how we're going to get to a competitive, long-lasting, sustainable solution.
I certainly couldn't agree more that there's no point trying to compete head on, because you will not win. So you've clearly got the right strategy. You're clearly getting all of these grants and partners because you've got the right strategy. I'm still really hopeful that one of these days we'll get somebody in the UK to license your technology and build their own, because I think it is fascinating and a way forward. But we'll just have to keep working on that. It obviously looks as though we've got Arkansas is more attractive than the UK at the moment. Very disappointing. I mean, again, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, look, it's not an or thing. It's an and thing, in the sense that it's a licensing strategy. We can see plants being deployed in jurisdictions all over the world. So the UK is definitely not off the table by any means. It might be hard for us to build a whole bunch of plants at exactly the same time, but we certainly see growth here in all jurisdictions. And it's about bringing the right partners to the table. Companies with the balance sheets to build these out, with the operational experience, with the ability to hedge supply chains. All of that will play a very fundamental role in getting the right partners in place. And we're going to do that in Canada. We're going to do it in the US. We're going to do it in Europe. Wouldn't that be great if we could do it in the UK and the Asia Pacific region? So our strategy allows all this stuff really to happen as part of a multi-pronged, growth strategy. And as you know, I'll be there in a couple weeks. I'll be coming through London, certainly speaking with investors and some of our existing shareholders. And we continue to be very interested in doing something in Europe. Perhaps we serve that, from Canada initially. Perhaps it grows into something much bigger in the UK or Europe as well.
Look, you've clearly got something very exciting. And that's why we keep talking to you as well, Dan, because we know it's exciting. I think, look, if anybody listening to this, because this was quite we got straight into the meat, shall we say, of what's going on at the moment. If people want to know more about Nano One, please do get in touch with us or direct with Dan. Maybe just as a final comment, I mean, you said you're coming over to London in a couple of weeks' time, so that will be mid-November for anybody listening to this on catch-up, so to speak. What should we be looking forward to in the next sort of 6 to 12 months in terms of news, Dan? Is there anything you can pin and say, look, actually, you know what? Watch out for this, because that could really dramatically change things.
Well, just to build on a little bit what we said, we're not done on government financing, as you know. You've heard me say that before, and we still have a few tricks up our sleeves, so we're continue to work on that. Obviously, the relationship with Sumitomo and Rio Tinto is building. We've had a couple of announcements on Sumitomo already in the last few months, and so we continue to move that relationship along. A really, really strong partner. We on the government policy front, we've seen some really kind of fundamental changes. These are not our work, but they actually help us greatly. So we've seen China put export restrictions on technology, on processes, on materials, on equipment. That actually all plays very well into our camp. And we've seen the U.S. government with the prohibited foreign entities restrict access to some of the manufacturing tax credits for those who are importing like LFP into North America. So that's that's certainly important important to sort of keep a watch out for that, because all of that puts wind in our sails. Specific to what we're doing, look, we're executing on our capacity expansion in Candiac, and as I said, that will not only serve smaller defense contractors ultimately and sort of the initial sales, but it will also start to drive some of the sampling and offtake that are required for much larger facilities. Licensing, we continue to have discussions in progress, not with our partner, in collaboration with our partner Worley, but also independently in some other deals. So there'll be more set lines on that as we progress into 2026. And ultimately, from a supply chain point of view, we're doing a whole bunch of qualification work, not only with lithium that you saw at Rio Tinto, but with other players as well. Iron, phosphoric acid, they play really a big part of this. Like essentially, if we pre-package the raw material inputs, we bring the plant into play here. It comes with technology and licensing, all of that, and training. We're basically franchising LFP. And as we continue to add more and more modules to it, we make it much more attractive to industrials who are looking to get into space. So I think these kinds of innovations will really drive a lot of attraction, and you'll just see more meat on the bone here as we push into 2026.
You're clearly a very busy man, Dan. And so on that note, we've had a good chat there. As I say, it's quite deep into the technicalities. That if people want to know more information, please do let us know. But many thanks, Dan, and see you when you're over in London. It's terrific.
Yeah, see you soon, Andrew. Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.
This podcast has been produced and edited by VSA Capital. It is intended for information purposes and not as investment advice. The information is intended for recipients who understand the risks associated with equity investments in smaller companies. Please do your own research and do not rely on a single source when making an investment decision. VSA Capital may derive fees from this content and seeks to do business with the companies mentioned.